Springtime means yard sales throughout the neighborhood and the lacrosse field. Hey, you lost your stick, and I'll grab that pearl while I'm at it. Stop. Hammer time. A not so gentle rapping, tapping, knocking on the chamber door. Middies need that stick surgically attached to their hands. Or at least some sort of snap-back retrieval cord. What happens when clever meets persistent? Turnover time. But don't you turn over. We've got the plays right here, right now. Hello again, high school lacrosse fans. This is week 8 of the LaxWrap, and this is the Chief. I'm Chopper, and we are ready to go. But Chief, before we get into those top 10 teams, why don't you give us a wrap? Things are starting to get interesting now with just a couple weeks left of the season. What's new from this week?
Quick shout out to Crespi. I think a mark of a good team or a good program is one that gets better as the season goes on. Crespi's gone 0-10. They could have quit. They haven't, and they've worked hard. That's a testament to their team, their coaching, their team will. And, a big win. They beat Brentwood. Brentwood has 9 wins on the season. So they beat a team who has a winning record. A lot to say about Crespi.
What are they doing different now than you think they might have been doing the first couple weeks of the season?
I think it comes down to experience. They're a young team. They have 2 twin brothers on the team, number 24, number 11, I believe. Football players, so 2 sport athletes. Those kids are studs. Goalie, first-year goalie, he got better. And once again, you got Doyle and Connor Pierce. So those kids just needed some time. But big shout-out to Coach Livingston and the Celts from Crespi. Big W this week.
All right, so I don't know who they got left, but let's say they run the table. They end up 3-10 or whatever. A quality win's enough to get you a playoff seat?
Yeah, I would be scared to play Crespi coming up. Chaminade has to play them, and I believe Harvard Westlake has to play them. So you can't sleep on the Celts, man. Those guys can play.
So playoff seedings are coming up in 2 weeks, and it's legendary. This smoke-filled room, everybody going at it, jockeying for position. If you're the Crespi coach and you've just beaten Harvard Westlake, and who else you say they play?
Chaminade.
That's right. Are you going in there, beating your fist saying, "Get me a seed"?
I think Crespi's a top 16 team without a doubt. But at the same time, do you reward a team that's only won? At that point, it'd be 3 games.
Sure.
So that's going to be the argument. But are we rewarding scheduling or are we rewarding wins? That's the question.
I will tell you this, and we'll talk about the playoffs a little bit later. The teams that are playing the best at the end of the season are most likely to win the playoffs if you can get in the playoffs, and hopefully Crespi hasn't dug too big a hole for themselves.
That's right. You got to get in to win.
Okay, so let's get to the top 10 teams. And, you mentioned off the air that, hey, there's not a lot of changes in that group, and rather than just go through tick 10, 9, 8, let's start with what's changed in the top 10. Who's coming, who's going?
Right. I think it's important, overall body of work and how you're playing towards the end of the year. And just because you beat someone doesn't mean that you're necessarily better than them in rankings. You look at the college schedule, you had Carolina play Notre Dame. Carolina beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame was number 1. So does Carolina move up to number 1? No. It just shows that they're capable of winning on that day. And I think we have a lot of that right now. So I think anywhere from 4 to 14 right now, we're going to have a lot of upsets in playoffs.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about who's coming and who's going. You guys had a big win over Costa, Penn did.
Right.
And Costa had been struggling. So they're out of the top 10.
Yep, they're out of the top 10. They have a ton of talent, no doubt about it. They'll upset somebody in playoffs. Hear me now, see me later. But consistency over there.
And to talk about parity, the swing, they beat you guys, at your place, and you went and won pretty handily at their place. And from what you were saying, a couple of key saves here or there in that first game, and maybe there's a different outcome. So, it's hard to imagine on any given day who's going to win, who's going to lose.
That's right, and I said it before, there'll be upsets in playoffs. I want to give a shout out to my team. I rarely talk about Peninsula. I'm hard on them, kind of like the coach, being a father and a coach at the same time. I don't give them much credit, but these kids worked really hard in practice. They were out without an emotional leader, and they managed to put up 16 on Costa and only give up 7. So really proud of Peninsula, and I think they're peaking at the right time.
We get a lot of chatter on the email and so forth from people saying, "Hey, you're ignoring the Peninsula. We know why, because the Chief doesn't want to give people
that's right. Material. That's right.
The bulletin board stuff." But a good shout out for your kids, and we know you must show them plenty of love at practice and when you're one-on-one.
That's right.
Any other changes in the top 10 we want to talk about?
Let's see. I think Chaminade, huge W versus Harvard Westlake. They outplayed them, outground balled them, outshot them, won the game all the way around. So a lot to be proud of. However, bounce back game against St. Francis, and they lost. Now, St. Francis is a quality team, but to be a great team, you have to be consistent and win those games. So I think that Chaminade needs to, go back, check themselves in practice, and get themselves ready for a Crespi team. It's going to be difficult.
Well, the thing they're going to have to realize is that when they play a team like Harvard Westlake, they're up, right? Maybe they let down when they play their next game, but in the playoffs, you better be up for everybody, including if you're one playing 16, because there's you lose and you go home.
That's right. It's so important to not look at these standings to say, oh, we should win because, LaxWrap says we're better. You're better if you show up when you play. You're better if you work hard in practice. So don't read too much into the rankings.
And we're going to take a little closer look at the top 5 teams right after this. Chief, let's talk about the top 5 teams before we get out of here on the teams. There is a little bit of movement there, and one of those teams we've been looking at all year is Agora. They finally cracked the top 5.
Yeah, Agora, they're a solid 5. You don't want to play them. They're good, and they've played everybody. They've had a tough schedule. They're consistent. Being healthy is important for them. They've always been without a midi, without a face-off guy, without somebody. So I think they'll have everybody back come playoffs. Love that kid number 31. Puts the ball on the ground. That kid causes turnovers left and right. Forget his name. Maybe our producer can roll it.
And so at a 5 seed, interesting position because you're going to get 4. You'll get the winner of 4 and 1 in the semis. So if 4 pulls the upset, that's not a bad place to be seeding much. Although I'm sure Agora is just happy to be in the conversation at this point.
Right. A 5 seed is a great spot. Agora will be psyched. They have 1 week left if they can win games.
Okay. The other movement we had is that Harvard Westlake backed off a notch. They're now at 4. Westlake, who are producers, go ahead and roll something here, Mark, because Westlake's too big and strong to lose. They're at number 4 now, or at number 3 now, right? So it's the big 3 again.
It is the big 3, and I like Westlake at 3. I think that's the only team athletic and deep enough to play with Loyola and PV. So I think at the 3 spot, Westlake will have a shot if they're healthy, if everyone stays out of trouble. And, I think 3 spot Westlake's happy.
So I'm going to give you one of these canned questions. If Westlake plays Loyola or PV, Westlake wins if they what? What do they got to do to beat those 2 teams?
Wow, I would say slow the ball down against PV, but I don't know if that's in their DNA. It was last year. They beat them 8-7, beat Palos Verdes in the beginning of the year, so they've been there before. To beat PV or Loyola, you gotta play single-digit game.
Okay, lastly, let's talk about those 2 teams real quick. Loyola first. They haven't blinked since we've been talking about them. They've solidly held on to the number 2 spot. Any games in their schedule you're aware of that could knock them off, or you think they'll make it through unblemished?
I think they'll go through unblemished. They went down Saturday, played Torrey Pines, one of the best teams on the West. Probably not the scoring they were looking for. But playing that top competition will definitely get them ready for playoffs. I think they're keying in on PV coming up, hoping we can.
And we know that since Westlake beat PV and Loyola beat them for all but 2 seconds or whatever. Right. Neither of those teams will be intimidated by PV. But here's what you got to watch. Forget intimidation. PV is playing great right now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're getting better. And that's the mark of a good team is one that gets better from the beginning to the end of the year. And PV is starting to find their fire. So I don't want to play them. I'll play them on Tuesday.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for this week's top teams. We'll be back with the top plays in just a second. Okay, back with the top 10 plays, Chief, and we got some sweet ones this week. Let's start off with number 10. Chief, how long does it take Jarrett Jones to score a goal on the game's opening faceoff?
Looks like 9 seconds.
You're exactly right. 9 seconds gone on the clock. That's the fastest opening goal you're ever going to see, right?
Not so fast, Chopper. It's not that fast. Check out this guy. A pick and a bee to the hive. Jarrett Jones, anything you can do, I can do better. 8 seconds.
A second faster than Jared. Okay, this pole is teasing the other guy like a big brother protecting the candy from his little brother. And then watch how he shares it. Sweet.
Sharing the wealth. I like it.
Talk about some teamwork. 31 scoops it up, and he's going to send this other pole on his way.
That's my boy, 31.
Little tic-tac-toe action.
Head up field.
And then undress the goalie.
That's nice work, Agora. Defense to offense.
All right, last week we showed the long bomb outlets, but this time it's a pick, and he's going to go the other way. And then punish the goalie with the laser shot.
That's Shargo again. Lefty laser.
All right, keep an eye on the guy at X. He's going to do his job, feeds his guy out front. They don't get it done, but he's still lurking back there at X.
I think that's my boy, the banker, back there.
Yeah, well, he's going to take matters into his own hands and make the deposit.
I like it.
Now, we go to the airplane tarmac with Penn High. Serves as the canvas for Redondo's Preston Facher as he paints a masterpiece. Goal after goal after goal. Chief, how many goals exactly did Mr. Facher have?
5.
Did the Penn coach prepare his team for this?
Kid's going to Maryland. He's the real deal.
Back over the shoulder and then the finishing touch coming up here.
Holler out to Preston. You're the man, Facher. Another one. Chopper, it's not easy to stop some of these guys, man. Watch Mitch Colworth, senior attack for Chaminade, light it up. 5 of his own here. Shoots lefty, shoots righty, falling back. This kid's a sniper.
I just can't believe how talented these kids are now. It's just amazing the leaps they've made.
I'm not sure which hand this kid is either. He's lefty, righty, kid's
Absolutely.
all over the place.
He's amphibious, right? He can swim on top of it. All right, coming in at number 2. This Agura goalie rarely exits the crease, but here he comes. Eyes up, let it fly.
Meant to do that.
How about the catch? Goalie takes him down, but from his back, bingo.
That is nasty.
And then 10 just can't get over it.
My man, loving it. Run it out.
Now we go to the soft carpet of PV High, and mama, there's that man again. Penn number 25. We saw him last week. This week, a couple of beauties, right? Who inverts their pole?
That would be me.
Don't forget the goalie. The reason this guy can play offense is you got a guy back here minding the shot.
Oh, that's a great save, Connor Graves.
Wait a minute. Not this guy again.
Jared Jones, Scott Phillips, part 2 coming up.
So that's this week's top 10 plays. I got to make one correction. I've been calling Penn High's field the Tundra. I looked it up online. Tundra is like miles high and frozen. So now I'm calling it the airplane tarmac. But the good thing about that, Chief, why don't you guys just pave that area and you can use it for overflow traffic at football games?
Once we get a football team back, might think about it.
By the way, that is the football field too, isn't it?
That is.
I guess you can't park cars.
Right.
You can park cars there this year, but not next.
See what happens.
All right, last week of the season coming up.
That's right.
You're expecting the 1, 2, 3, 4 teams to probably finish out that way, right?
4 seed might be interesting. 1, 2, and 3. I think they're steady.
We want to thank everybody for watching. We're getting a whole lot more email, a lot of clips coming from people, parents, players alike. Keep it up, spread the word, because the Chief is there, Chopper's here. We want to see you next week on LaxWrap's LaxWrap.